Today, I'll share with you an event you won't hear about anywhere else. In this story, the killer and the victim are the same person. Before diving into the incident, I'd like to tell you a little about myself, as even though I wasn't the victim of this tragedy, I was deeply affected by it, just like a victim. I am a 28-year-old woman living in Turkey. Don't be misled by the male voice narrating this video. I'm not a man, I'm a woman. Now let me tell you about the event that changed my family's perspective on life forever. On the morning of October 13th, 2024, while having breakfast with my husband and two children around 9:30 a.m., I received a call from my youngest sister. She was crying and told me that my 23-year-old eldest nephew had taken his own life with a shotgun. I froze on the phone. My hands and feet went numb. I didn't know what to do. The saddest part of it all was that my nephew was 900 kilometers away from us, in a village on his father's farm, and his father was in a completely different city at the time attending a funeral. This meant no one was with him. He had posted something on Instagram that seemed like a farewell note and didn't answer anyone's calls. His father immediately called the shepherd who worked for them and told him to rush to the house without explaining why. When the shepherd arrived, he found my nephew lying in a pool of blood and started screaming. My brother-in-law, still on the phone, begged the shepherd to call an ambulance. Emergency services and the police arrived at the scene and made every effort to revive him. While all of this was happening, our large family, scattered across 4 different cities, tried to make our way to the farm as quickly as possible. While on the road, I called the hospital to get an update on his condition. The woman on the other line told me the doctors were attending to him. With my heart full of hope, I prayed fervently for his survival. However, during the journey, I received a call from my brother, who told me to head to the city where my nephew's mother lived instead of the hospital. That's when I realized he had passed away and that my brother, along with the rest of the family, was heading to his birthplace to prepare for the burial. For the first time in my life, I saw my father cry. This tragedy made me experience so many firsts. During the journey, I couldn't stop thinking, why? Why would he do this? The voices in my head didn't quiet down until the journey ended. When we arrived in his hometown, I went to my sister's house, where only a few neighbors were present. By 8 p.m., my husband was the first to arrive, followed by my youngest sister, my other sister, and my mother 2 hours later. Around 2 a.m., my eldest sister, his mother, finally arrived. I will never forget her state. She wasn't in her right mind, only crying and screaming my nephew's name. According to Turkish traditions, funerals last 3 days. During those 3 days, my sister neither stopped crying nor ate a single bite of food. Apart from the occasional sip of water we forced her to take, she consumed nothing. After the third day, when everyone had left and only the family remained, we began discussing the possible reasons behind his suicide. We discovered several factors. My nephew had been using cannabis since his high school years. His family only found out about it a year ago. He frequently demanded large sums of money and sometimes displayed violent tendencies at home. However, the amounts he asked for were far beyond what one would need for cannabis. Later, we learned he had a girlfriend during his university years, a woman who was a lawyer at the time and later became a prosecutor. My brother's employee, who is also a close relative and a good friend of my nephew, revealed something shocking during a visit. He said my nephew's girlfriend had introduced him to heroin. My nephew had been struggling to quit, and he claimed he hadn't used it for a while. Aside from his struggles with addiction, my nephew was always a melancholic person. He often compared himself to others and felt like a failure. He loved us all deeply and received endless advice on how to lead a good life. When we first heard the news of his suicide, we thought it was a spur-of-the-moment decision during a heated argument, but as more details emerged, we realized it wasn't an impulsive act. That morning, my nephew, who usually didn't care about personal grooming, had showered, dressed in clean clothes, shaved, folded his laundry, and made his bed. He had prepared for his death, something he would never normally do. It became clear to us that he had decided to end his life after battling drug addiction for so long. He probably felt he was heading toward another withdrawal episode and believed he would never escape this cycle. To him, death seemed like the only way out. His brief farewell note on Instagram strengthened this belief. It read, "The worst fate in my life has always been written by the people I love the most." We also discovered another shocking truth. My nephew had started using cannabis in high school with the encouragement of my brother-in-law's brother. This revelation enraged my brother-in-law, who severed all ties with his parents, siblings, and extended family. They deeply regret burying my nephew in his birthplace, as they now plan to move away from that city. They've also put the farm where the incident happened up for sale, saying they can never live there again. In my 28 years, I had never experienced having a family member who used drugs, committed suicide, or was involved in any crime. This incident opened our eyes, reshaped our values, and made us more vigilant about what to watch out for in our children's lives. I will never forget my nephew's voice or face for as long as I live. The pain in my heart will remain until we reunite in the afterlife. I love you so much, my firstborn nephew. Until death reunites us again.